President Trump is not thrilled about some of the polling going into the 2020 election. And I have to let you guys know that this is actual internal polling from the administration itself and not from, outside outlets. And generally, internal polls tend to be a little bit more accurate. And that context is really important as we get further into the story. Now, these poll results ended up getting leaked to the press, right? And afterwards, since these poll numbers were not favorable to the president, see, there's a difference here, right? So if polls are favorable to the president, they get leaked to the press. Well, then he's like, the tremendous poll, best poll ever. And he doesn't have a problem with it. But as you're going to see in this case, if they're not good for the president, then he throws a complete fit and fires his pollsters. Now, both CNN and ABC News reported on Sunday that the Trump campaign said that they plan to part ways with some of the pollsters in the wake of a recent leak, which showed the Trump campaign falling behind many Democrats in the field in a lot of key states. For example, the ones that are beating Trump by the most are Senator Bernie Sanders and Vice President Joe Biden. Now, in an interview with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos, which aired on Sunday, Trump at first denied the existence of any negative polls. Now, this is hilarious. This is Donald Trump, the Trump campaign's own polls that they retain, these firms, right? These polling firms to conduct these polls. They get leaked to the press, and Donald Trump says, "What polls? The polls, they don't exist. What are you talking about? I don't know any polls." And then, of course, in Trumpian fashion, he's like, "Oh, those polls, they're fake news, fake polls," as you're going to see, right? In fact, he said, quote, "My campaign has great internal polling. The numbers that were reported were from fake polls." Quote, "We are winning in every single state that we polled. We're winning in Texas, very big. We're winning in Ohio, very big. We're winning in Florida, very big," according to ABC, he said. Those are fake numbers, the other number, which, by the way, if you didn't know the context and he just blurted out fake numbers afterwards, those are fake numbers, well, the ones he just rattled off are fake numbers. And actually, he didn't say any real numbers because he doesn't have them. He just says, "I'm doing tremendous." Well, that in itself is fake news, right? He says, quote, "But do you know when you're going to see that? You're going to see that on election day." He also claimed that he was the subject of phony polling, not only so far in this election, but also in the last election, right? He polls predicted where he was going to be tied in Texas, but, quote, "I won by a lot." Well, okay, look, did they mess up polls last election? Of course they did. And look, nobody is more sorry about that than good old Nate Silver at 538, who definitely got it wrong. And look, a lot of outlets did get it wrong because, and this is important, they didn't count unlikely voters. Where Trump did well is that he got out unlikely voters, people who normally didn't vote. They undercounted. This time, do you think they're going to make the same mistake? No, not really. I don't think so anyway. You'd have to be stupid to make that same mistake. Then again, mainstream media, you know what I mean? The establishment. Anyway, now, he said, quote, "I was going to be tied in Utah. I won by a lot. I was going to lose Pennsylvania. I won it. I was going to lose North Carolina. I won it. I mean, it was all phony polling. It's actually phony polling, and I believe it's suppression. They suppress. They want to suppress the minds of people so they don't bother going out and voting." Really? Really? Suppression? You're talking about suppression? Oh, my God. While the administration literally does voter suppression against African Americans. I mean, I know the projection here. The projection here. And he says, and when asked did the president believe that there's a conspiracy around polling, he said, "No, I just think it's a bad group of people and it shouldn't be allowed. But that's no different than fake news, and the fake news is at a level that it's never been at before." And you'll love this last statement here from him. He says, quote, "I like the truth. I'm actually a very honest guy. If I thought the polls would be correct, I wouldn't be complaining at all. Okay. Let me just say this, right? As succinctly as possible. They're your own polls, dumbass. Those polls, which are, they're fake polls. They're your polls. They're your campaign's internal polling, which, yes, is generally happens to be more accurate than other polls. What kind of monumental idiot are you? Seriously. No. Fake news, fake polls, bad people. They're your people. You hired them. I thought you only hired the best people, the best pollsters. But apparently he only loves polls when they're favorable to him. And by the way, during the same interview, he mentioned a poll that he did like. One that apparently was not fake news. This was a Rasmussen poll that found his approval rating to be about 50%. Now, compare that to the Quinnipiac poll, also a very recent poll, that had him about 42% approval rating, right? And he said, 42%. I have a Rasmussen poll that says I'm at 50%. Quote, Quinnipiac has never been accurate for me. Rasmussen was one of the most accurate polls. Rasmussen has a history of oversampling Republicans. They literally skew it towards Republicans. That's why on every Rasmussen poll, the Republicans always have and always maintain a sizable lead over the aggregate of all other polls. Now, of course, you're going to have a higher approval rating if the weight of the poll is towards people who are predispositioned to like you already. That is a skewed poll, right? It's sort of like phone polling people over 50 in the Democratic primary, right? Those polls, and I pointed that out in a previous video. Go subscribe, look that up, right? Where some of the polls that showed Biden with this massive, massive lead over Bernie Sanders oversampled people over 50 and with landlines. You literally missed out on a ton of people because you just didn't poll them. You didn't ask them. So it wasn't a good representative sample. And that's the problem with polls. And you also have push polls. That's another big problem that you have in the Democratic field too. So, of course, when you do those kinds of polls, when you skew, when you oversample, or when you do push polls, you're going to have things like Donald Trump having 50% approval, Joe Biden having a massive lead over Bernie Sanders, etc., because you're leaving out a lot of people. But hey, you know what? As far as Trump's concerned, let him be overconfident. Let him ignore his campaign, right? His campaign pollsters. Let him get that hubris that Hillary Clinton had going into 2016. And let's see how that works out for you. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.